That night, between the clink of champagne flutes and the crackle of party poppers, my mother jabbed her finger at the shoes I was wearing. My father burst out laughing, and my brother said it loud enough for everyone to hear, "From trash bin." I smiled. Then I hit record on my phone. From that moment, I knew I'd turn this humiliation into a plan with lawyer signatures, security cameras, and a pair of shoes that would make my entire family bow their heads at the upcoming celebration. My name is Lauren Pierce, and I've learned that family gatherings are just performance art where everyone pretends to love each other while sharpening their knives under the table. The country pop playlist at my father's 60th birthday party was loud enough to mask most conversations, but not loud enough to hide the venom. We were at my cousin Derek's house in Westfield, Indiana, a McMansion with cathedral ceilings and zero personality, perfect for hosting 100 relatives who'd rather be anywhere else. The buffet table groaned under pulled pork sliders, corn casserole, and enough potato salad to feed half of Hamilton County. I stood near the French doors leading to the deck, nursing a lukewarm beer and watching my mother, Marjorie, hold court by the kitchen island. She wore her favorite St. John knit suit, the powder blue one she'd bought specifically to outshine her sister-in-law at family events. My father, Greg, worked the room in his new golf shirt, accepting birthday wishes with the practiced ease of a small-town insurance broker who'd spent 40 years glad-handing clients. Lauren. My cousin Sabrina Ward materialized beside me, her engagement ring catching the overhead lights like a disco ball. "Those shoes are interesting." I glanced down at my feet. The Oxfords were 1940s originals I'd rescued from an estate sale liquidation box, restored over 3 weeks of careful work, new leather insoles, hand-stitched repairs on the upper fresh laces, the kind of craftsmanship nobody bothered with anymore. "Thanks," I said, knowing she didn't mean it as a compliment. "Mom's looking for you," my brother Ethan called from across the room. At 35, he still wore his high school quarterback glory like cologne too much and impossible to ignore. I made my way through the crowd, past aunts comparing grandchildren's SAT scores and uncles arguing about property taxes. My mother stood with a semicircle of her book club friends, all matching blonde highlights and Botox-frozen expressions of perpetual surprise. "There she is," Mom said, her voice syrupy sweet. "We were just talking about career choices. Sharon's daughter just made partner at her firm." "That's nice," I said. "And Laura, here, still doing her—" "What do you call it again?" "Honey Brand Consulting Brand Design," I corrected. "At Arcadia Brand Lab." "Right. Such a creative field." She turned to her friends. "Lauren's always been our artistic one, still playing with arts and crafts at 32. The women tittered. I took a long pull from my beer. "Speaking of playing," Mom continued, her gaze dropping to my feet. "What on earth are those supposed to be?" The circle widened, everyone craning to look. She bent down, actually jabbing her manicured finger at my left shoe. "Did you pull these from someone's garbage?" She straightened, addressing her audience. "I swear, we spent good money on her education, and she shows up to her father's birthday looking like she raided a homeless shelter." My father wandered over, drawn by the commotion. "What's going on?" "Your daughter's footwear choices," Mom said. Dad squinted at my shoes, then burst out laughing the same harsh bark he used when closing deals. "Jesus, Lauren. Couldn't spring for something from this decade." "From trash bin," Ethan shouted from behind me, loud enough that conversations stopped 3 groups over. He was already recording on his phone, getting reactions from cousins who were all too eager to join the pile-on. My teenage cousin Aiden swung his phone around, catching it all for his Instagram story. The caption would probably read something about his weird aunt or family roast session. I felt the familiar burn of humiliation creeping up my neck. The same feeling from every family dinner where my choices became the evening's entertainment. The apartment that was too small. The boyfriend who wasn't marriage material. The job that wasn't a real career. But this time, something shifted. I smiled. Not the tight, defensive smile I usually wore at these events, but something genuine. Something cold. You're right, I said, pulling out my phone. These shoes are trash. I pretended to check a text while opening voice memos, then slipped the phone back into my vest pocket, red dot recording everything. At least someone's self-aware, Mom said, already turning back to her friends. Now, where were we? Oh yes, Sharon's daughter's partnership? The conversation moved on, the moment of sport over, but Ethan couldn't resist one more jab, leaning close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath. Seriously though, he said, you need help. I know a good therapist if you're having money troubles. I'm good, I said. Because Mom mentioned you're renting some weird warehouse space for what? More garbage picking. Something like that. He shook his head, walking away to find his wife. Around me, the party continued laughter, music, the pop of another champagne bottle. Normal family celebration sounds that felt like glass in my ears. I stood there for another moment, feeling the weight of my phone in my pocket, the electronic witness to what had just happened. Then I walked to the deck, where the Indiana evening was turning purple at the edges, and made a decision. This time, I wouldn't swallow it down. This time, I wouldn't let it go. This time, they'd learn exactly what these trash shoes were worth. The shoes weren't garbage. They were my grandmother Evelyn's last lesson to me. Though she'd been dead for 3 years now, I drove home from the party with the windows down, letting the humid Indiana night wash over me. The recording on my phone sat like a loaded gun in my pocket. Every time I hit a stoplight, I thought about my grandmother's workshop, the smell of leather conditioner and beeswax, the neat rows of wooden shoe forms, her hands guiding mine along a stubborn seam. Every stitch tells a story, Lauren, she used to say. Every repair is an act of love. Grandma Evelyn hadn't been a cobbler by trade. She'd been a literature professor at Butler University for 30 years, but her father had been a shoemaker in Chicago, and she'd learned at his bench as a child. When she retired, she converted half her garage into a workshop. While other grandmothers taught their grandchildren to bake cookies, she taught me to replace soles and reshape leather. The Oxfords I'd worn tonight, I'd found them in a liquidation box at an estate sale 6 months ago. The leather was cracked, the insoles rotted, one heel completely separated. Most people would have seen trash. I saw potential. I spent 3 weeks bringing them back, conditioning the leather until it was supple again, hand-stitching new welts, building new heel blocks from scratch. They were 1940s originals, probably worn by some Indianapolis businessman during the war years. Now they were mine, rebuilt with my own hands using techniques Grandma Evelyn had taught me. The family saw none of this. Of course, to them. I was still the flaky middle child who'd dropped out of law school to play with computers, as my mother called it. Never mind that brand design was a legitimate career. Never mind that I'd helped launch 3 successful startups at Arcadia Brand Lab. Never mind that my side project Second Sunrise, my small batch shoe restoration business, was actually starting to gain traction online. No, to the Pierce family. I was a disappointment wrapped in second-hand clothes. The family operated on a simple principle: family comes first. It sounded noble until you realized it meant your boundaries came last, your privacy came last, your choices came last. Everything you owned was communal property if someone needed it. Every decision was subject to family committee review. When I'd started renting the small warehouse space in Broad Ripple 3 months ago, I'd made the mistake of mentioning it at Sunday dinner. A warehouse. My mother's fork had paused midway to her mouth. Whatever for workshop space, for a project I'm working on. Must be expensive, Ethan had chimed in. Seems wasteful for a hobby. It wasn't a hobby. It was Second Sunrise, and I was 3 months away from my first official collection launch. But I'd learned long ago that explaining my dreams to my family was like throwing seeds on concrete. The worst part. When Grandma Evelyn died, she'd specifically left me her shoe forms and her vintage Singer leather sewing machine. The will was clear, these were mine. But somehow, the family had decided these were family heirlooms that belonged to everyone. Mom kept asking when I was going to bring them to her house for safekeeping. Ethan had already called dibs on the Singer, when you're done playing with it. They had no idea I'd moved everything to the warehouse the day after I signed the lease. The shoe forms over 50 of them. Some dating back to the 1920s were arranged on custom shelves I'd built myself. The singer sat in pride of place, still working perfectly after 90 years. This was my inheritance, my legacy, my connection to the one person in the family who'd actually seen me. I pulled into my apartment complex at 11:45 p.m., but I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my car and pulled up the family group chat. Sure enough, it was already blowing up. Sabrina. Such a fun party, Uncle Greg looked so happy. Mom, thanks to everyone who came out. Then, lower down Sabrina. BTW Lauren, I'm thinking your warehouse would be perfect for my engagement party photos. That industrial vibe is so in right now. My phone buzzed with a direct message from her. I'm thinking next Saturday at 2 p.m. I'll bring my photographer and maybe 10 people. You can show us your little shoe project too. I stared at the message. She'd already decided. Already made plans. Already assumed my space was available for her use because that's what family did they took. Another message popped up, this one from Mom. That's a wonderful idea, Lauren. Make sure the place is clean. And maybe move those old shoe things out of the way for the photos. Those old shoe things. My inheritance. My craft. My business. I locked my phone and looked at my Oxfords in the dim light of the parking lot. The leather gleamed softly, every stitch perfect, every line restored. They weren't trash. They were proof that broken things could be made beautiful again, that discarded things had value, that some people knew how to see worth where others saw only garbage. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start setting boundaries. Tonight, I would start planning exactly how. By Sunday morning, the group chat had become a full-scale planning committee for Sabrina's unauthorized photo shoot at my warehouse. Sabrina, I'm thinking we could hang some fairy lights from those industrial beams. Aunt Patricia, oh, and I have those vintage mirrors from my bedroom redesign. They'd look amazing against exposed brick. Mom, Lauren, you'll need to clear out whatever you're storing there. We'll need the full space. I sat at my kitchen table, watching the messages pile up while my coffee went cold. Not a single person had actually asked if they could use my space. They'd gone straight from assumption to decoration plans. I typed carefully. I'm sorry, but the warehouse isn't available next Saturday. It's a working studio with expensive equipment and ongoing projects. The typing indicators appeared immediately. Multiple people. All at once. Mom, don't be ridiculous. It's just for a few hours. Sabrina. Lauren, this is for my engagement. I'm only getting engaged once. Ethan. Typical Lauren. Can't even help family out. I tried again. The space has liability issues. My insurance doesn't cover events. Mom called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. This time, I answered. Lauren Michelle Pierce, she started, using my full name like I was 12. I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this selfishness stops now. It's not selfishness, Mom. It's my workspace. I pay rent. Family helps family. That's how we do things. Or have you forgotten that we helped you through college? The same college they'd insisted I attend. The same degree they'd chosen for me. The help that came with strings attached like puppet wires. I haven't forgotten anything, I said quietly. Good. Then you'll stop this nonsense and give Sabrina the keys. In fact, why don't you just give me the spare set? That way we won't have to bother you every time someone needs the space. There is no spare set. There was a pause. Don't lie to me. Lauren, I was with you when you signed the lease. They gave you 2 sets. My stomach dropped. She was right. I'd gotten 2 sets, and she'd been there, insisting on coming along to make sure they didn't take advantage of me. She'd probably pocketed the spare when I wasn't looking. I have to go, I said. We're not done discussing. I hung up. The direct messages started immediately. Ethan, really mature, hanging up on Mom. But it was the message from my brother-in-law Kyle that made my blood run cold. Hey, Ethan and I might swing by your warehouse tonight to check it out for Sabrina. What's the address again? I'd been very careful never to give them the exact address, but Westfield was small enough, and Broad Ripple only had so many warehouse spaces. They could find it if they tried. At 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with another message from Ethan. Know what Mom remembered she kept that spare key, just in case you lost yours. Heading over now to scope it out for Sabrina. Thanks for being cool about this. They had a key. They were going to my space, tonight, without permission. I grabbed my jacket and drove to the warehouse, breaking every speed limit on Meridian Street. When I pulled into the lot, I saw Ethan's truck already there, parked crooked like he owned the place. The side door was open. I found them inside, Ethan and Kyle, walking around like they were touring a property for sale. Kyle was actually taking measurements while Ethan poked at my shoe forms. These are actually pretty cool, Ethan said, not even startled when I walked in. Grandma's old stuff. Right, Mom's been saying we should get these appraised. Might be worth something. Get out, I said. Relax, Kyle said, still measuring. We're just looking. This place is perfect for Sabrina's photos. We could set up right here. Get out, Ethan laughed. Come on, Lauren, don't be such a... You're trespassing, I said, pulling out my phone. Leave now or I'm calling the police. You'd call the cops on your own brother. Ethan set down the shoe form he'd been holding, but too hard. It toppled, taking two others with it. The sound of wood hitting concrete echoed through the space. Real nice, Lauren, real family values. They left, but not before Kyle snapped photos for Sabrina to see. Not before Ethan accidentally knocked over my leather die rack with his shoulder on the way out. After they were gone, I sat on the floor of my violated space, surrounded by scattered shoe forms and spilled dye, and realized something: they would never stop. As long as they had access, as long as they believed my boundaries were suggestions, as long as they held that spare key, they would keep coming. I picked up one of Grandma Evelyn's shoe forms, running my fingers along the smooth wood. She'd carved her initials in the base of each one, EMP, Evelyn Margaret Pierce. Every stitch tells a story, I said to the empty warehouse. This story was about to get a new chapter. Monday morning at 7 a.m. I was standing outside Safeguard Security Systems when they opened. By noon, my warehouse had a new electronic lock system with unique access codes, 4 cameras with cloud backup, and motion sensors that sent alerts directly to my phone. You want the premium package? The installer asked, looking at my small space. Seems like overkill for a workshop. I have problem relatives, I said. He nodded knowingly. Say no more. While he worked, I cataloged everything. Every shoe form got an RFID sticker, invisible unless you knew where to look. The Singer sewing machine got 3-1 under the base, 1 inside the case, 1 on the foot pedal. I photographed each item with its tag, creating a digital inventory that uploaded automatically to the cloud. Tuesday. I drove to the law office of Monroe and Lake in downtown Indianapolis. Rachel Monroe was a friend from college who'd actually finished law school. I need a cease and desist letter, I said, sitting in her pristine office. And a notice of trespass. Family problems, she guessed, seeing my expression. They broke into my warehouse. With a key, a spare they took without permission. Rachel pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything. I did. The birthday party, the group chat, the midnight invasion. She took notes, occasionally wincing. Here's what we can do, she said when I finished. Cease and desist for harassment and trespassing. Notice of trespass that specifically names individuals banned from the property. If they violate it after being served, it becomes criminal trespass. Can you prepare them but not send them yet? I asked. I want to have them ready. She raised an eyebrow. Playing the long game. Something like that. Wednesday. I registered Second Sunrise as a DBA doing business. It wasn't a full trademark yet, but it established a paper trail. My little side project was now officially a business, with its own EIN and everything. Thursday. I started designing. The mock-up came together quickly, a sleek Oxford based on the very shoes they'd mocked, but elevated, premium reclaimed leather, hand-stitched details, custom brass eyelets. The insole would be stamped with a simple phrase, "I decide my worth." The name came naturally, the From Trash Bin collection. I posted a teaser on my business Instagram, just a close-up of leather being cut. No explanation. Within an hour, I had 200 likes and dozens of comments asking for details. Friday morning brought an unexpected text from Mom. "Your father and I have been discussing the warehouse situation. We've decided to schedule monthly family events there. First Sunday of each month. Mark your calendar." They'd decided. Not asked. Decided. I screenshotted everything. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with an alert from the warehouse cameras. Motion detected. I opened the app to see Ethan's truck in the parking lot. He was trying his key in the new lock, getting increasingly frustrated. Kyle was with him, and they were clearly arguing. I watched them circle the building, testing windows, examining the new cameras. Ethan actually flipped off one of them perfect footage for my growing file. Saturday was my parents' 35th anniversary party, 3 weeks away. Mom had been planning it for months, renting the community hall at Stony Creek Church, hiring caterers, inviting every distant relative within driving distance. It would be the family event of the year. I called the venue. "Stony Creek Community Hall. This is Janet." "Hi, Janet. This is Lauren Pierce. My parents have their anniversary party scheduled there in 3 weeks. "Oh, yes, your mother has been so excited. How can I help?" "I'd like to add something to the event. A small presentation. I'd need the projection system for about 10 minutes. "That should be fine." "What kind of presentation?" "I'm launching a new business venture," I said. I wanted to surprise them with the announcement. "How wonderful, I'll make a note in the file." My final preparation was the most satisfying. I created a simple website for the From Trash Bin collection with a countdown timer set for 8 p.m. on the anniversary party night. The tagline read, "Every piece has a story. Every restoration is a revolution." I scheduled the first product drop for that exact moment. Limited edition, 25 pairs only, each one hand-restored from vintage originals I'd been collecting for months. That evening, Sabrina sent another barrage of messages about her photo shoot, now apparently scheduled for the morning before the anniversary party. "Since you're being difficult about the warehouse, we'll just do the photos there before the party starts. It's perfect. Everyone will already be dressed up." Mom added, "Lauren, you'll need to bring those shoe forms to the venue. We're setting up a heritage display." A heritage display of my inheritance that they'd already tried to steal. I looked at the cease and desist letters sitting on my kitchen table. Names already filled in: Ethan Pierce, Kyle Richardson, Marjorie Pierce. Rachel had included a blank one too, just in case. 3 weeks until the anniversary party. 3 weeks to finish the collection, edit the security footage, and prepare my presentation. 3 weeks until I showed them exactly what trash could become. I opened my laptop and started a new document, Anniversary Speech, Final. The first line wrote itself, "Family is everything. That's what you taught me. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly what that means." 2 days before the anniversary party, I sent Sabrina a private message that would become the cheese in my mousetrap. "I've been thinking about what you said," I wrote. "You're right, you only get engaged once. How about this? I'll give you 30 minutes at the anniversary party for a style rehearsal. I'll bring some restored vintage pieces. You can do a mini photo shoot, but it happens at the venue, not my warehouse. Deal." Her response was immediate and gushing. "OMG, Lauren, yes, this is perfect. I knew you'd come around. Can you bring those cute shoe forms too? They'd be amazing props." "Sure," I typed, knowing exactly which forms I'd bring: the replicas I'd bought from an antique store, not Grandma Evelyn's originals. "You're the best. Mom said you were being difficult, but I knew you'd support me." I screenshot the conversation and added it to my folder labeled Evidence. The bait was set. Now for the trap. At 4:17 a.m. on the morning of the anniversary party, my phone exploded with motion alerts from the warehouse. I rolled over in bed and opened the app, watching the feed with grim satisfaction. Ethan's truck again. But this time he'd brought reinforcements: Kyle and another figure I recognized as my cousin Derek's husband, Marcus. They were trying everything: the windows, the loading dock, even attempting to remove an exterior vent cover. The new floodlights I'd installed kicked on automatically, bathing them in harsh white light. The speakers I'd connected to the system started blaring a pre-recorded message. "This property is under surveillance. Law enforcement has been notified. Leave immediately." The three men scrambled like roaches when the light hits, but not before the cameras captured everything in crystal-clear 4K resolution: their faces, the license plate, Ethan carrying what looked suspiciously like a crowbar. I didn't call the police. Not yet. That footage was worth more to me unspent, a card to play at exactly the right moment. By 7 a.m., I was at the venue, setting up while the space was still empty. Janet, the venue coordinator, helped me test the projection system. "Just want to make sure everything works perfectly for later," I told her. "Your mother mentioned you might cause some drama," Janet said carefully. "Something about you being upset about a family disagreement. Did she—" I kept my voice neutral while adjusting the projector angle. "Well, I promise you, anything that happens tonight will be entirely about protecting my legal property rights." Janet's eyebrows rose. "Legal property rights?" "My lawyer will be here," I said, placing Rachel's business card on the table. "Just in case anyone gets confused about ownership of certain items. You know how families can be about inheritance." She picked up the card, studied it, then looked back at me. "My sister tried to steal my grandmother's china after the funeral. I had to get a restraining order." "Then you understand." "I do." She handed the card back. "The venue has a strict policy about disturbances. If anyone becomes disruptive or refuses to respect property rights, we're required to ask them to leave." "Good to know," I said. I finished the setup and left, but not before hiding a small remote control behind the gift table. Everything was connected, ready to trigger with one button push. The party started at 6 p.m. I arrived at 6:30, wearing a simple black dress and carrying a vintage leather bag, one of my best restorations. On my feet were the Oxfords from 3 weeks ago, but polished to a mirror shine. "Well, look who decided to show up," Mom said, intercepting me at the door. She was wearing her anniversary dress, a silver sequined number that cost more than my monthly warehouse rent. "I hope you're not planning any of your dramatics tonight." "Just here to celebrate," I said. "Sabrina asked me to help with something." "Yes. She mentioned you finally came to your senses. The photographer is already here. We'll do it right before the speeches." The hall filled quickly: aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, Dad's business partners. The decorative lights twinkled overhead, the catered food smelled expensive, and everyone was dressed like they were attending a society wedding. Sabrina found me by the dessert table, practically vibrating with excitement. "The photographer loves the vintage aesthetic. This is going to be perfect for my engagement announcements." "Glad I could help," I said, watching Ethan across the room. He was laughing with Kyle and Marcus, probably sharing the story of their failed break-in this morning. They had no idea I'd watched the whole thing. At 7:45, Mom clinked her glass for attention. "Before we start the speeches, Sabrina wants to do a quick photo session with some family heirloom pieces that Lauren has kindly brought." I walked to the small staging area we'd set up, carrying my bag of replica shoe forms. Sabrina posed with them while the photographer snapped away, completely oblivious that these weren't the real ones. "These are so authentic," she gushed. "Lauren, you really do have an eye for vintage pieces." "Just trash bins and estate sales," I said loudly enough for Ethan to hear. He snorted from his table. At exactly 7:55, Mom took the microphone again. "And now for the speeches. But first, Lauren mentioned she had something to share." This wasn't part of her plan. Her eyes narrowed as I walked to the front, but she couldn't stop me without causing the scene she'd warned me against. "Actually," I said into the microphone, "Mom suggested I should apologize for making the family upset recently." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Mom relaxed slightly, smiling her public smile. I pulled out the remote from my pocket, feeling its weight like a detonator. But first, I continued, I'd like to show you all something interesting from a few family gatherings. I pressed the button. The projector flickered to life, and suddenly the wall behind me filled with video from my father's birthday party 3 weeks ago. The audio was crystal clear through the venue's sound system. "Did you pull these from someone's garbage?" My mother's recorded voice rang out, her finger jabbing at my shoes on the screen. The camera had caught her face perfectly, the cruel twist of her smile, the way she'd looked at her friends for approval. Then my father's harsh laugh. Jesus, Lauren, couldn't spring for something from this decade. And finally, Ethan's voice booming, "From trash bin!" The party hall went dead silent. 200 eyes swiveled between the screen and my family's table. Mom had gone pale under her makeup. Dad's mouth hung open. Ethan half stood from his chair, then sat back down. "That was 3 weeks ago," I said calmly into the microphone. But wait, there's more. The second video started timestamp clearly showing 4:17 a.m. from this very morning. The infrared camera had captured everything in stark detail, Ethan with his crowbar, Kyle trying to jimmy the window, Marcus attempting to remove the vent cover. The automated security message blared through the speakers. "This property is under surveillance. Law enforcement has been notified." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Is that breaking and entering?" "That's my warehouse," I explained. "My workspace that I pay for, containing my property, including inherited items from my grandmother. This morning, these 3 men attempted to break in." "Lauren," Mom shot up from her chair. "Stop this immediately." "I'm not done," I said. Janet, the venue coordinator, stepped closer to the stage, her hand on her phone. The screen changed to a series of screenshots, the group chat messages. Mom demanding I clear out my space. Sabrina assuming she could use it without asking. Ethan calling me selfish for saying no. Each message stayed up long enough to read, the family's entitlement documented in their own words. "But here's the interesting part," I continued. "Mom, you mentioned earlier that these were family heirlooms." I pulled out a manila folder from my bag. "This is Grandma Evelyn's will, page 3, paragraph 2. To my granddaughter Lauren Michelle Pierce. I leave my complete collection of vintage shoe forms and my Singer leather sewing machine, to do with as she wishes. That's a legal document. These items are mine. Those belong to the family." Mom's composure cracked completely. She started toward the microphone, but Janet stepped forward. "Ma'am, please return to your seat," Janet said firmly. "This is our anniversary party. And disrupting a presentation about property rights could be considered aggressive behavior," Janet replied. "Please sit down." I clicked the remote again. A new image appeared, a professional photo of the From Trash Bin, Oxford, beautifully lit against a dark background. "Since my family thinks my work is trash," I said. I decided to embrace it. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my new collection, From Trash Bin. Vintage shoes restored with traditional techniques my grandmother taught me. Each pair takes 3 weeks to complete. They launch tonight at 8 p.m. I glanced at my phone. "Which is in exactly 3 minutes. "This is ridiculous," Ethan shouted. "You're destroying Mom and Dad's anniversary for what, some stupid shoes? The same stupid shoes you tried to steal this morning," I asked. "Along with the shoe forms you were planning to appraise and sell." He went red. "We never. It's on video, Ethan." Rachel Monroe chose that moment to walk in, dressed in her best lawyer suit, carrying a leather portfolio. She walked straight to Ethan's table. "Ethan Pierce," she asked professionally. "Yeah." She handed him an envelope. "You've been served. Cease and desist for harassment and attempted breaking and entering." She turned to Kyle. "Kyle Richardson." Kyle looked like he wanted to sink into the floor as she handed him his envelope. Marcus had already started edging toward the exit, but Rachel was faster. "Marcus Chen." She served him too. "And Mrs. Marjorie Pierce." My mother stared at the envelope like it was poisonous. "You're suing your own mother. It's a cease and desist," Rachel clarified. "It legally bars you from entering Ms. Pierce's warehouse or attempting to access her property. Violation will result in criminal charges." The hall erupted in whispers. Phones came out. People were recording, texting, probably posting to social media. Dad's business partners looked scandalized. The extended relatives were eating this up like it was dinner theater. "Furthermore," Rachel continued, addressing the room, "anyone who attempts to access Ms. Pierce's property without permission will be prosecuted. The security footage from this morning has already been provided to the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department." "You called the cops on your own family," Mom shrieked. "Not yet," I said. "But I will if you ever try to break into my space again." My phone buzzed. 8 p.m. exactly. "Oh, look," I said, refreshing my website on the projector. "We're live." The From Trash Bin collection appeared on screen. 25 pairs of restored vintage shoes, each with its story, each priced at $300. As I watched, the first pair sold, then another, and another. 10% of proceeds go to the Evelyn Pierce Foundation for Traditional Crafts, I announced. "A nonprofit I'm establishing in my grandmother's memory." By the time I looked up from my phone, 5 pairs had sold. My phone was pinging with Instagram notifications the teaser campaign had worked. I reached into my leather bag and pulled out a pristine shoebox, the kind that expensive boutiques use matte black with Second Sunrise embossed in gold foil. The room seemed to hold its breath as I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, sat the crown jewel of my collection, the From Trash Bin originals. The same style as the shoes I was wearing, but elevated to art. The leather gleamed like dark honey, each stitch perfect, the brass eyelets catching the light. I'd spent 50 hours on this pair alone. "These are the flagship model," I said, lifting one shoe so everyone could see. Restored from 1940s Oxfords I found in an actual trash bin outside an estate sale. Someone threw them away because the soles were separating and the leather was cracked. I turned the shoe over, revealing the custom leather sole. Laser-etched in elegant script were the words, "I decide my worth." "Every pair in the collection has this inscription," I continued, "because value isn't determined by what others think of you. It's not determined by family who calls your work trash. It's determined by the craft, the effort, and the love you put into restoration." My phone was buzzing nonstop now. I glanced at the screen, 12 pairs sold. The notifications kept coming. Mom lunged for the microphone again, but this time Dad grabbed her arm. "Marjorie, stop," he said quietly, but the mic picked it up. "You're making it worse." "She's ruining our anniversary." Mom's voice carried even without the microphone. "No," Dad said, and for once, he sounded tired instead of angry. "We did this." The admission hung in the air like a confession. I pulled up another image on the projector, a QR code the size of a door. "For anyone interested in the collection, scan this code. And for my family members specifically," I looked directly at Ethan, "I want you to know that From Trash Bin is now a registered trademark. So is I decide my worth. Any attempt to use these phrases commercially will result in legal action." Ethan's face went from red to purple. "You trademarked my insult. Your insult is now my brand. It's already trending on Instagram." I held up my phone, showing the hashtag #JarredFromTrashBin with over 3,000 uses in the past 10 minutes. Rachel stepped forward again, this time addressing Janet. "Ms. Ward, my client has evidence of attempted breaking and entering from this morning. If any of the served parties become disruptive or threatening, would you assist in having them removed?" Janet nodded. "The venue has a zero-tolerance policy for aggressive behavior." "This is insane!" Sabrina finally found her voice. "Lauren, we're family. You don't sue family." "I'm not suing anyone," I clarified. "I'm setting boundaries, cross them, and then we'll talk about lawsuits." The projector screen changed one more time. Now it showed a local news website, WTHR Indianapolis. The headline read, Local designer turns family insult into fashion statement. Below was a photo of me holding the shoes, taken by someone at the party and already posted online. That was fast, I muttered. Small-town social media moved at light speed. You planned this, Mom said, her voice hollow. You planned to humiliate us. I planned to protect myself, I corrected. You planned to steal from me. There's a difference. I reached into my bag again and pulled out one more thing, a small wooden shoe form, one of the replicas I'd brought for Sabrina's photos. This isn't even one of Grandma Evelyn's real forms, I said, holding it up. I brought fakes tonight because I knew you'd try to keep them. The real ones are safely locked in my warehouse, the one you tried to break into this morning. Sabrina's photographer, who'd been frozen in place since the first video played, slowly raised his camera and snapped a photo. The flash broke the spell, and suddenly everyone was talking at once. My phone showed 18 pairs sold, only 7 left. Oh, and Ethan, I added, pulling up one more video on my phone and casting it to the projector. This is you from 10 minutes ago. The video showed Ethan at his table, leaning over to Kyle and Marcus, clearly audible. We should have gotten in when we had the chance. That Singer machine alone is worth $5,000. The admission of intent to steal echoed through the hall. That's taken out of context, Ethan stammered. The context is my 35th birthday party where you admitted planning to steal my inheritance, I said. Would you like me to play the full video? Rachel cleared her throat. Mr. Pierce, that statement constitutes conspiracy to commit theft. I'd advise you to stop talking. The room felt electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Family members were choosing sides with their body language, some leaning away from my parents' table, others shaking their heads at me. The divide was visible, but I didn't care anymore. 22 pairs sold. 3 left. I'm done being the family doormat, I said into the microphone. I'm done letting you take what's mine and call it sharing. I'm done pretending your insults are jokes. I picked up the From Trash Bin Oxford, holding it high. This shoe, you called it garbage, but it's worth more than your opinion. It's worth $300 to someone who appreciates craftsmanship. It's worth the hours I spent learning from Grandma Evelyn. It's worth the boundary I'm setting right now. All 25 pairs sold out. My phone screen showed the notification, collection sold out in 11 minutes. This is not an apology, I said, looking directly at my mother. This is a boundary. I set down the microphone, picked up my bag, and slipped on the flagship From Trash Bin Oxfords, the ones with I Decide My Worth etched into every step. The sound of my heels against the community hall floor was the only noise in the room. Each step echoed with precision leather meeting linoleum in a rhythm that sounded like judgment. Behind me, the projector still displayed the sold-out notification. My phone continued buzzing with order confirmations, media requests, and Instagram notifications. The hashtag #RFromTrashBin had hit 10,000 uses. Someone had already created a TikTok that was going viral. Woman destroys toxic family with receipts and designer shoes. I reached the door, then turned back one last time. The tableau was perfect. Mom standing frozen by her anniversary cake. Dad slumped in his chair. Ethan staring at the cease and desist letter like it might disappear if he looked hard enough. The extended family had their phones out, some recording, others frantically texting. This would be the talk of Westfield for months. Happy anniversary, I said to my parents. Enjoy your party. Janet, the venue coordinator, moved to stand beside the door. Ms. Pierce, she said quietly, that was the most elegant takedown I've ever witnessed. Thank you, I said. My grandmother was a seamstress. She continued, she would have loved what you did with those shoes. Behind us, chaos finally broke. Voices rose, some defending me, others calling me cruel. I heard Aunt Patricia say, well, they had it coming, and Uncle Robert respond. But at their anniversary party, Mom's voice cut through the noise. Everyone out, party's over. Ma'am, you've booked the venue until 11 p.m. Janet called back. You can't end the event early without forfeiting your deposit. I smiled and pushed open the door. The parking lot was cool and quiet after the stuffiness of the hall. I could see people starting to stream out behind me, some relatives who'd had enough drama, others probably eager to spread the gossip. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Brilliant execution. Documents will be filed Monday morning. They won't bother you again." As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. I tensed, expecting Ethan or Mom, but it was my cousin Derek's daughter, Emma, barely 22 and fresh out of college. "Aunt Lauren," she called. "Wait up." I turned. That was... She paused, searching for words. That was incredible. They've been pulling this shit with everyone for years. Remember when they tried to claim Cousin Michael's restaurant equipment after he specifically left it to his son? I'd forgotten about that. "I want to learn," Emma said. "The restoration. I mean, could you teach me? It's hard work," I warned. "I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm afraid of ending up like them." She gestured back at the hall where shouting had erupted, Ethan's voice carrying across the parking lot. "Come by the warehouse next week," I said, handing her a business card. "We'll see if you have the patience for it." She grinned and ran back to her car. I sat in my driver's seat for a moment, watching the chaos through my rearview mirror. The parking lot was becoming a battlefield of family factions. Some cars peeled out dramatically. Others formed small groups, probably dissecting every moment of what had just happened. My phone screen showed 53 missed calls from Mom, 32 from Ethan, and 17 from various relatives. I deleted them all without listening. Instead, I opened my business email. 3 boutique stores wanted to carry the next collection. A fashion blogger with 2 million followers wanted an interview. The local news station requested a statement, but the email that made me smile was from a woman in Portland. "I bought the last pair. My family called my vintage clothing collection hoarding garbage. Your story made me cry. Thank you for reminding me that I decide my worth." I started my car and drove away from Stony Creek Community Hall, away from my parents' ruined anniversary party, away from 32 years of being the family disappointment. The From Trash Bin Oxfords sat beside me in the passenger seat, their laser-etched message catching the streetlights as I drove. I decide my worth. Behind me, the projector in the hall still glowed, the screen now showing my website's homepage where "Sold Out" blazed in triumphant letters. The QR code remained visible, and according to my analytics, 300 people had already signed up for notifications about the next collection. Ethan's words from 3 weeks ago had been meant to humiliate me. Instead, they'd become my declaration of independence, my brand, my boundary. He'd called them trash. I'd made them treasure. As I pulled into my apartment complex at 9:45 p.m., my phone buzzed with one final notification. A Google alert for From Trash Bin. The story had been picked up by the Associated Press. The headline read, "Indianapolis designer's family feud launches viral fashion brand." I looked at the shoes one more time, running my finger along the perfectly restored leather. Grandma Evelyn had taught me that every stitch tells a story. Tonight, I'd told mine. The family group chat notification popped up one last time. I opened it, curious. Mom had written, "Lauren is no longer welcome at family events until she apologizes." I laughed, typed a quick response. "Perfect. My boundaries. Your choice." Then I left the group. The warehouse security app showed all quiet, every camera functioning, every lock secure. My inheritance was safe. My business was launched. My boundaries were set. I walked into my apartment, set down the shoes, and opened my laptop. 27 emails from potential customers wanting custom restorations, 14 from investors, one from a publisher asking if I'd considered writing a book about traditional craft and family dysfunction. The shoes sat on my kitchen counter, catching the light, transformed from insult to income, from trash to triumph. Tomorrow, I'd start work on the next collection. Tonight, I'd savor the sound of my footsteps walking away, each one declaring I decide my worth. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? How did you handle it? Your stories inspire me to keep creating. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, remember, you decide your worth.